Welcome back to another episode of Chef Chenard's Sauce Mière. In this episode, we're going to be making for you a fruit de mer. This is a classic seafood linguine dish. We're going to be using lobster, shrimp, and scallops. We have our linguine, and most importantly, we have our seafood sauce mière, our seafood glaze. In this particular glaze, the main components are lobster and shrimp, and obviously the fresh vegetables. And once again, it is simmered the appropriate time, it is strained, it is manicured to where it comes out to a perfect glaze, as you can see. We're going to start off with just a little bit of olive oil in our pan. It's not as hot as in some of our other episodes with the chicken and beef because we don't want the seafood to scorch. We do want to lock the juices in, but we don't want to burn the delicate seafood. In this particular instance, I'm going to go ahead and, as always, and salt and pepper my product. I'm going to start with the scallops because they actually will take the longest to cook. I go in with the scallops. The next ingredient I want to go in with is my fresh Maine lobster tail. We're going to get a little bit of heat on them because, like I said, it takes just a little bit longer for them to cook than the shrimp. The shrimp cook very, very quickly. And as you know, there's nothing worse than a real rubbery piece of fresh shrimp. So we're adding them last. I'm shaking the pan a little bit. I don't want it to get too overly hot. I do want to lock the juices in. At this point, you can see I got a nice little golden brown and locked the juices into the scallops. We've gone and turned them. I'm going to go ahead and do the same with the lobster. Then we'll move right to the shrimp. And now we've got a nice little sear to lock all the beautiful juices and flavors into our fruit de mer. The next component we want to come in with is a little bit of sherry. I like sherry in this dish. It has a light bit of sweetness to it. The same as how I feel about lobster. A great Maine lobster, when it's fresh, has a wonderful, sweet, subtle type of succulent flavor to it that I just can't resist. Again, I'm from Boston, and as a young boy, I used to actually go with my grandfather, and we would pull lobsters. And in those days, there were no pulleys like you see on Wildest Catch and those shows. We'd be out there muscling those lobster traps. Anyway, we put a little bit of sherry in here. Now for the next ingredient, once again, we have our sauce mière. In this particular instance, it is the seafood version, once again, made with both lobster and shrimp. We put in about 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces on that. We're trying to make a little bit more sauce this time than for the other couple of dishes because we wanted to coat our noodles. And one thing that I learned in Italy is that you never make a sauce for pasta and just pour it on the top. That's sacrilege. In Italy, you always coat the noodles with a beautiful sauce, whether it's red, whether it's cream. Doesn't matter whether it's a pesto, you always need to coat the noodles. The noodles will actually absorb the flavors of the sauce and the ingredients you're using. So I need to make a little bit more sauce in this particular instance to make sure that we can get a nice coating on those noodles, in this case, linguine. Once again, we need to add a little bit of just tap water or your favorite bottled water because we have to reconstitute this very, very beautiful, fresh lobster sauce mière. As you can see, it's lightly steaming. It's so fragrant, it brings me back home. For our next ingredient, we're going to be adding, once again, a little bit of heavy whipping cream. This is also going to kind of stretch out the sauce just a little bit. Probably put 2 or 3 ounces in there. And at this point, what we're doing is we're steaming the rest of the seafood to the doneness that we're looking for. At this point, we're just about cooked with all of our seafoods. And again, I don't want to overcook them. Nothing worse than rubbery seafood. So actually, at this point in time, too, as I'm waiting for the sauce to reduce a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and actually start pulling some of the seafood to the side so that we don't overcook it and make it rubbery and chewy, so that we can continue to cook our sauce down a little bit and get it to its perfect consistency. We want it a little bit tighter than this. So again, so that I don't overcook the seafood, as you can see, it's perfectly cooked right now. I want to get a little bit more reduction on my fruits de mer sauce. And we're just about there. Now remember, noodles have a lot of starch in them. So when we add the noodles to the sauce and coat them, they're actually going to put a little bit of starch into that sauce and help thicken it. So even though we're just at that stage and it's a little too thin right now, I'm going to go ahead and add my fresh noodles. Now, typically, I would like to re-drop these noodles, but we just cook them fresh. So I'm taking them right out of the water and drained and right into our sauce. And as you can see, we're getting a nice coat there, and it's going to start to thicken up just lightly. At this point, once again, butter is life. That's going to be one of the finishing touches. I happen to like the tarragon flavor. It just melds so well with sherry and lobster flavors. So just a little bit of chopped tarragon for this sauce. As you can see, look how quickly it thickened up, introducing the noodles that have a little bit of starch in them. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and reintroduce all that delectable seafood to our dish. Give it a little toss. We know it's going to be nice and hot right now. Truthfully, I don't want to reduce it too much. So at this moment, I'm going to bring in my very handsome and debonair chef de cuisine at Chenard's Cuisine. He's going to plate this dish for you. I just thought it would be much more appealing, him than me. So again, Beau Van Ty. As you can see, he's getting the noodles on the bottom. We like to feature all the wonderful seafoods on the top. So we're going to get most of the noodles on the bottom. We're going to feature the lobster, shrimp, and scallop on the top. He's got a nice little coating. As you can see, the consistency of the sauce is just perfect at this point. You don't want it to be overly matty. You don't want it too thin so that it doesn't able to coat the noodles. From what you can see, we have a beautiful fruits de mer linguine dish made from our Chef Chenard's sauce mier seafood glaze. There's so many dishes that you can make from all of our wonderful glazes. And bon appetit.